Hello, and thank you for tuning in to the 2021 Competition Debrief for EDA's STEM Talent Challenge. My name is Carmen Myers-Reed, and I am a part of the Office of Innovation and Entrepreneurship here at EDA. I'll be walking you through the competition and hopefully helping you to improve upon your application for next year. Today, I will start by talking about the competition itself and the numbers of applications received, as well as looking at the competitiveness of this year's challenge. Then I'll dive into technical review and talk about the most common technical errors that we saw in applications. I'll move on to the real meat of this presentation and of the review process, merit review, and talk about what we saw in stronger and weaker scoring applications. Finally, I'll go over next steps as you prepare for next year's competition. I will now talk briefly about the number of applications received and the competitiveness of last year's challenge. In the second year of the challenge, we received 77 applications in total, which is remarkably close to the previous year's 78. We did see some of the same applicants as last year, but also had a large number of new applicants to the program and to EDA. We received applications from 35 states. Multiple states such as New York, Ohio, Missouri, California, Utah, and Florida had 4 or more applications submitted, while other states such as Oregon, Texas, Louisiana, and Virginia did not have any applications submitted. After an extensive review process, we selected 8 applications for funding, obligating just a hair under the appropriated $2 million. We received a large majority of applications from 2 entity types: nonprofit organizations, who submitted 54% of the applications, and higher ed, who submitted 36% of the applications. We also received 6% of applications from government entities and 4% from others, such as public-private partnerships. Before we dive into this slide, I want to thank you for submitting an application to this year's challenge. The numbers really show for the need for these types of programs, and I'm hopeful that the strong showing from applicants can help this program to grow. As you probably could tell from the previous slides, the acceptance rates for this year's competition were very low, similar to the previous year. We only accepted about 10% of applications, which is lower than any of our office's other programs. Overall, applicants requested $23.7 million, which was more than 11 times the appropriated amount of $2 million. Regardless of how you look at it, this year's challenge was still very competitive. The first step in our review process is to review applications for technical completeness, also known as technical review. It is at this time that we ensure that applicants have submitted all of the required documentation as listed in the NOFO. Applications that are found to be technically insufficient are disqualified and are not scored, so it is very important that you pay attention to all technical requirements. The most common issues that we saw during technical review that would cause an application to be technically disqualified were missing matching funds or documentation and lack of government support. During the application period, we are here to help with any technical questions that you may have, so please call or email us if you have any questions. We don't want you to get knocked out of the competition due to a technical mistake. When it comes to matching funds, we saw a variety of issues. First off, as a reminder, this program requires a one-to-one match, which means that applicants must bring at least as much money in match as they are requesting. If an application does not include the required minimum of match, then it will not pass tech review. Next, match amounts should be easily traceable and consistent throughout budget documents so that we can understand where it is coming from and how it is contributing to your project. Finally, funding must be available at the time of the application, so it can be something that will be based on future earnings or agreements. All matching funds must be documented by commitment letters, even if the matching funds are coming directly from the applicant. These commitment letters must state that the funds are unencumbered, unrestricted, and committed at the time of the award. What this means is that they have to be available for the project and have to be fully committed, meaning that they can't be based on future earnings or agreements, as I said on the last slide. We also saw a lot of applications that were missing government support. This is a requirement for all non-public entities, which includes private institutions of higher ed. We are looking for a letter or resolution that shows that the applicant is supported by one or more states, political subdivisions of a state, or native organizations that encompass the region served by the project. These must come from an official government entity that oversees the region served. Okay, now that we've talked about tech review, let's reset a bit and talk about the intent of this challenge. We looked for applications that were aligned with the mission of this challenge, as well as with EDA's other investment priorities. What do we consider to be the mission of the STEM Talent Challenge? Well, as we say in the NOFO, the program seeks to drive regional innovation by building STEM-capable talent. This means that projects must complement their region's innovation economy and should be tied to transformative sectors and industries of the future. We are looking for projects that are going to lead to quality jobs and that will drive regional innovation. So a strong application highlights training that is closely aligned with the region's innovation economy. Okay, now it's time to dig into merit review. During merit review, each application was scored by 3 reviewers on 6 different criteria. Along with a score, reviewers included comments as to why they selected the score that they did. Based on these comments, we have put together a collection of trends for each criterion, and we'll go into traits of applications that scored stronger, as well as look at applications that did not score as well. The first criterion that we looked at was the strength of regional partnership and assets. Specifically, we wanted to see projects that were supported by and connected to a diverse group of partners who would help reach outcomes. We look for clearly defined roles, as well as partners from all aspects of the project, including employers. Stronger applications were noted to have established connections with industry partners who expressed and often documented commitments to hire and support work-based learning opportunities. Reviewers also liked when projects had partners from a variety of institutions, such as government, industry, community-based organizations, trade unions, etc. They wanted to see that the project was supported by partner organizations who could help to reach planned outcomes. Weaker applications, on the other hand, often stated that they had planned to develop relationships following the grant award or failed to include industry partners or hiring commitments at all. Though these items were not required, they helped reviewers to believe that the projects would achieve their goals and ultimately helped applications to score better. Finally, applications that failed to identify an industry or industry cluster and were more industry agnostic did not score as well. Remember, we are looking for proposals that are closely tied to industry, particularly industries of the future. So proposals that didn't do this struggled to show that they had partners in place that would help projects achieve their desired outcomes. We also looked for projects where the partners had clearly defined roles and the main function of the project were supported by partner entities, as necessary, particularly job placement outcomes. On this end, stronger projects that were able to demonstrate how partner commitments were tied to the successful execution of program components whereas weaker applications describe the roles that partners would play in vague terms or not at all. In stronger applications, the lead alone was not responsible for all project components, and there was heavy involvement from the project partners who would share the workload. Conversely, weaker applicants lacked a cohesive approach to involving stakeholders in the project, and project components weren't supported by partners. Finally, stronger applications showed clear and practical roles for regional partners and evidence of this commitment to involvement in the project. Weaker applications didn't provide evidence of commitment from partners to fulfill their roles, or their roles weren't defined at all. The next criterion that we looked at was alignment with the goals of the STEM Talent Challenge program. That is, to build STEM-capable talent that drives regional innovation. On this end, stronger applications described specific STEM skills that training would build and connected these to a clearly defined regional industry need. They demonstrated that the selected industry or industries were well positioned to grow and provided evidence that projects would lead to higher paying jobs. Finally, they considered both immediate and future talent pipelines, and programs were meant to fulfill industry needs. Weaker applications, on the other hand, often proposed general STEM training, but it wasn't tied to a particular industry. As with the last criterion, these industry agnostic projects did not score as well. Additionally, weaker scoring applications often did not link the building of STEM talent to a regional need, either because the need was not clearly defined or the training did not necessarily align with it. Finally, weaker scoring applications did not describe both short and long-term goals, and generally were primarily focused on the short-term ones or had vague outcomes. The third criterion that we looked at was whether or not a project was likely to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion in STEM. We were looking for clearly defined, active outreach plans and partners with corresponding experience. Stronger applications included partners who were operating in the DEI space, as well as specific goals for underserved and minority participation. They even nested DEI into proposed outcomes, and it was woven throughout the proposal. Strong applications are also often included a specific and nuanced DEI plan that was tied to the region served by the project. Weaker applications often did not have a clearly defined outreach plan, or this component felt like an afterthought. Many relied on diverse regional demographics to show DEI, but failed to demonstrate a cohesive plan to target underserved populations and mitigate disparities in STEM. Many also did not demonstrate support from partners who were working in the DEI space, which caused these applications to score less positively on this criterion. Our fourth criterion was measurable goals and impacts. And for this one, we looked both at details of the planned goals and whether these goals were likely to produce outcomes related to both participant job placement and the impacts on the regional economy. In this category, stronger applications provided a clear timeline for goals and outputs, whereas weaker applications did not specify qualitative or quantitative goals or didn't include information about when they would be achieved. Strong applications also clearly demonstrated the alignment between the goals of the program and fulfilling the needs of the highlighted industry. On the other hand, applications that scored weaker on this criterion didn't show the impact projects would have on the STEM labor market. Finally, strong applications included ambitious but attainable stretch goals related to high-quality job placements for program participants. Lower scoring applications proposed filling low-quality or non-STEM related jobs as part of the proposed impact. The fifth criterion that we looked for was project sustainability and adaptability. For this criterion, we looked at whether a project had a sustainability plan that showed it was likely to sustain grant activities once the funding ran out. We also looked at the likelihood that it could be adapted to obtain future sources of funding. Stronger applications identified multiple specific sources of funding and had a multi-year track record of implementing the proposed projects or similar projects. Applicants had access to emergency funding sources if necessary to sustain the project. They proposed plans that identified multiple practical courses of action to obtain future funding. Finally, stronger applications demonstrated the scalability and flexibility to expand impact and opportunities. Weaker applications also often had sustainability plans, but did not propose financially innovative ways to sustain projects, or they did not include diverse sources of future funding. Finally, our sixth criterion looked at the budget and staffing plan. For this, we looked at whether or not the budget and staffing plan made sense and reflected an organization's ability to carry out the project successfully. Stronger applications provided clear staffing plans that specified the names of leading individuals, time commitments to the project, and the track records of those individuals. They discussed costs in the project narrative, as well as providing specific, consistent figures in the budget narrative and other budget documents. Finally, they had subject matter expertise in the programs proposed. On the other hand, weaker applications often did not identify the core leadership team or name the project coordinator, or they dedicated an outsized portion of program funds to just a few personnel. They dedicated matching funds to unrelated projects. Finally, some weaker applications did not have adequate or any staffing time assigned to the projects. In summary, we noticed some overall trends across the 6 criteria. First, projects without a clear industry identified did not score as well as those connected to a specific industry. Projects that clearly identified goals for job placement outcomes within the project period scored better than those that had delayed job placement impacts. Finally, projects that focused on sustainability but not adaptability did not score as well, as reviewers felt unclear that they would be able to be adapted for future funding. Overall, applications that were organized and aligned with the merit review criteria scored best overall. Okay, now that we've talked about the review process and the trends that we saw, let's talk about future funding activities at OIE and give you a little bit of insight about this year's STEM Talent Challenge. First, we have OIE's flagship program, Build to Scale, which builds regional economies through scalable startups. This is broken into 2 challenges. The Venture Challenge awards grants to organizations that are supporting entrepreneurial ventures, such as accelerators, incubators, universities, and nonprofits. We're looking for organizations that are supporting new businesses that are scalable by nature and furthering job creation. The Capital Challenge provides operational support for the formation, launch, or scale of investment funds that are aiming to invest capital in scalable businesses, as well as organizations seeking to expand capital deployment within a region or regional industry, such as an angel network. For more information about Build to Scale, visit our website, eda.gov/OIE. The application period will be open in the coming months. We do plan to run the FY 2022 STEM Talent Challenge this year, but this is still pending budget approval. We wish we had more information, but hope that it will be coming soon. Subscribe to the EDA newsletter for updates to the application window and follow EDA on all social media platforms. To subscribe to the newsletter, visit the site on this slide. If, after viewing this webinar, you would still like to receive one-on-one feedback on your application, we will ask you to do a bit to prepare for the meeting. First, you will watch the webinar. If you've made it to this slide, you've completed the first step. Great job. Then we ask you to reread your application in its entirety and identify areas of strength or weakness. You will want to make sure to identify members of leadership who will work on your next submission. To schedule a one-on-one call or to ask any questions, email us at oie@eda.gov. Thank you again for applying, and thank you for working to improve your application for this year's competition. We look forward to hearing from you and reading what you put forth next year.